It's exactly 3 p.m. here in Cairo. Time for the news. I'm Sheena Adel and I'm joined today by my colleague Mahisi Rabia. Good afternoon, Mahisi.
Good afternoon, Shireen. Good afternoon, our dear viewers. And we'll start our news bulletin with the look at the headlines.
President Fattah el-Sisi arrived at the G20 Summit Avenue in the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro ahead of the summit's launch. President el-Sisi participates in the two-day summit upon an invitation from the current G20 chairman, Brazilian President Lula da Silva. The summit focused on topics of priority to developing countries, on the top of which is social inclusion, combating poverty, reforming global governance institutions, along with energy transition file. This is Egypt's fourth participation in the group's summits, following its participation in China in 2016, Japan 2019, India in 2023.
Ahead of the G20 summit launch, President Fattah el-Sisi met with Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and signed a joint communique on elevating the bilateral ties between the two countries to the level of strategic partnership. More details.
On the sidelines of the G20 summit in the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro, President Fattah el-Sisi met with Brazilian President Luiz Lula da Silva late on Sunday. Presidential spokesman said President el-Sisi was keen on thanking President da Silva for inviting Egypt to participate in the G20 summit this year, which reflected Brazil's high appreciation to Egypt's pivotal role in both Middle East and Africa. President el-Sisi praised organization of the summit and keenness of the Brazilian side on including the priorities of the developing countries on the agenda, topping the list of which is launching global alliance against hunger and poverty in light of growing geopolitical, economic and social challenges across the world. For his part, Da Silva praised the active Egyptian participation in the meetings of the group throughout the year, which supported the needs and priorities of developing countries, stressing his appreciation to participation of President Fattah el-Sisi. The President and Da Silva tackled Egypt's efforts to restore stability in the Middle East and reach an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and Lebanon. President el-Sisi praised Brazil's position in support of Palestinian cause. Following the meeting, Egyptian and Brazilian leaders signed a joint communique regarding elevating the bilateral ties between the two countries to the level of strategic partnership in order to achieve aspirations of both nations. According to the communique, Egypt and Brazil decided to boost dialogue and understanding through extensive diplomatic ties, holding bilateral meetings and reciprocal visits between top officials from both countries. The communique on strategic partnership comes on the 100th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Egypt and Brazil, which coincide with deep friendship ties between the peoples of the two countries. Earlier on Sunday, President Fattah el-Sisi arrived in Rio de Janeiro and was welcomed by leading Egyptian officials and delegation from the Egyptian embassy in Brazil. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said Sunday's successful outcome at COP29 summit in Baku is still within reach, but it will require leadership and compromise, namely from the G20 countries. He made the remarks in Rio de Janeiro, where he is attending the G20 summit. Diplomatic tensions over global warming will take center stage at the summit in Brazil as negotiators at UN talks in Azerbaijan hit an impasse on climate finance that they hope leaders of the world's 20 major economies can break. While the COP29 summit in Baku, Azerbaijan is tasked with agreeing a goal to mobilize hundreds of billions of dollars for the climate. Leaders of the group of G20 major economies are holding the purse strings. G20 countries account for 80% of the world's economy and are the largest contributors to multilateral development banks, helping to steer climate finance.
The Lebanese Health Ministry said Israeli attacks have killed 11 people and wounded dozens, 48 others in Lebanon's southern Tyre region. Israeli occupation army have carried out a series of air raids in southern Lebanon, where its ground forces are trying to deepen an incursion that began on the 30th of September. In the Lebanese capital, Israeli strikes on Sunday killed 6 people, including Hezbollah spokesman. The strikes prompted the Education Ministry to shut schools and higher education institutions in Beirut and surrounding areas for 2 days as a result of Israeli escalation. The Lebanese authorities say more than 3,480 people have been killed since October last year, with most casualties recorded since September.
Sources in Lebanon said on Monday that U.S. envoy Amos Hochstein, who is overseeing contacts to secure ceasefire in the war in Lebanon, is due to visit Beirut on Tuesday, with Beirut expected to give its response to U.S. truce proposal. The U.S.-led ceasefire diplomacy has come back into focus as Israel has been stepping up its offensive. The new U.S. truce proposal was delivered last week to Lebanese Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri, who has been endorsed by Hezbollah to negotiate. A Lebanese political source said White House envoy Amos Hochstein was expected in Beirut on Tuesday for talks on the ceasefire. Lebanese media outlet Voice of Lebanon also reported the visit, citing Lebanese lawmaker Qasim Hashim, who is part of Berri's parliamentary bloc. World powers say Lebanon ceasefire must be based on UN.
The European Union's top diplomat on Monday confirmed he would suggest to members of the bloc that the EU pauses its political dialogue with Israel, citing the country's conduct of the war in Gaza. The European Union's foreign policy chief Joseph Borrell last week proposed that the bloc suspend its political dialogue with Israel, citing possible human rights violations in the war in the Gaza Strip.
The Israeli war of aggression in Gaza Strip showed no sign of abating on Monday, as Israeli attacks kept targeting civilians, killing at least 18 people in the enclave's southern city of Khan Yunis. An Israeli airstrike on a tent sheltering displaced people killed 6 people from the same family, including 2 children and their parents. In northern Bethlehem town, several displaced people were killed in Israeli raids, which come amid an over 40-day-long Israeli offensive. Meanwhile, in Gaza City's southern district of Zaytun, Israeli occupation forces detonated residential buildings. Israeli occupation attacks across Gaza Strip on Sunday killed over 100 Palestinians. The health ministry in Gaza said overall death toll in the Israeli war rose to 43,922.
The United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operation said today that a vessel 60 nautical miles southeast of Yemen's Aden reported a missile splashing into the sea in its close proximity. It added that the vessel and its crew were safe. Earlier, a suspected attack by Yemen's Houthi group targeted a commercial ship traveling through the southern reaches of the Red Sea, though it caused no damage nor injuries. Yemen's Houthi group has been attacking commercial shipping in the Red Sea for more than a year to try to enforce a naval blockade on Israel, saying they are acting in solidarity with the Palestinians in Israeli occupation year-long genocide war on the Gaza Strip.
Two children were among 11 people killed when a Russian missile hit a residential building in Ukraine's northeastern city of Sumy, while another missile strike left the region's administrative center without power. 89 people, including 11 children, were also injured in the attack on the city. The attack on Sumy followed a morning of Russia's pounding Ukraine's power grid in what Kiev said was a massive attack with 120 missiles, 90 drones that killed at least 7 people.
To our economic news, Minister of Electricity and Renewable Energy Dr. Mahmoud Ismat said that his ministry aims to secure permanent, clean and low-cost energy part of Egypt's integrated sustainable energy strategy. The minister's remarks were made during his meeting with a delegation of the International Financing Institution, where he presented a plan to reduce the use of traditional fuel and also to reduce the carbon emission. They also discussed means to deepen and depending on new renewable energy resources and to expand the use of energy storage systems.
Egypt's bourse climbed at the start of today's dealing, with its capital crossing 2.2 trillion Egyptian pounds after it ended yesterday's transaction in the red. Benchmark index EGX 30 rose 0.2% above 31,317 point mark. The equal weight indices EGX 70 and EGX 100 surged 0.5% and 0.4% respectively.
Malaysia's top squash player Seva Sangari faced a surprising defeat on home soil, losing to 17-year-old Amina Orafi of Egypt in the 8th Malaysian Cup yesterday. World number 1 Orafi shocked the home favourite, securing her second professional title with scores of 8-11, 11-9, 12-10, 8-11, 11-6. All at the Curve Mall. The Malaysian player was denied her second title of the year, having won the London Classic in April. In the men's competition, Malaysian squash player Angie Ain Yo produced one of his best displays ever en route to beating Egypt's Youssef Sulaiman 11-7, 11-7, 11-7, clinching the men's title.
Egypt's national squad continued training today in preparation for the 6th and final round 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier against Botswana. The record 7-time champions will play against Botswana tomorrow at the Air Defense Stadium at 5 p.m. Cairo local time. The Pharaohs have already sealed a place in the tournament finals, due to be held in Morocco after 3 straight winning streak in the previous qualifying rounds over Group C rivals Cape Verde, Botswana, and Mauritania. Taking home advantage, Egypt will seek to cement their position on top of Group C after collecting 13 points in 5 qualifying rounds. Well, dear viewers, that's all for 3 p.m. news. I'm Shina Adel, and I was joined by my colleague Mahisti Rabia. Thank you, Mahisti.
Thank you so much, Shireen. Thank you so much, our dear viewers. And with that, we come to the end of our news bulletin.